you need something more than just quality, because everyone claims quality as well. Everyone claims customer service.
When salesperson leaves the company, the whole business, they take the customers as well. If they were digital first, the sales process, the sales channel wouldn't have entangled into the individuals.
Having data structured properly opens up a world of possibilities for us.
Imagine in a city, all the traffic lights stop working, and then imagine the chaos. That is the level of chaos currently the industry is facing. That's what I feel for.
But the better thing is to say we landed that monstrous contract because we could offer something no one else could, is because of our edge factor and what we built here.
Hey Julian, welcome back to yet another podcast with Disruptors.
Hey Ritesh.
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Yeah, doing good. How was your weekend and everything?
Pretty good. Can't complain. So pretty hectic, but that was really good. Yourself?
Yep, had a good time with family and everything. It was good. So today we will be discussing around our target market, that is manufacturing industries, and we'll be discussing around the issues, problems they usually face. So what kind of issues and problems they face, we'll be discussing around that. If you have anything in your head, you can get started with that, and then we'll continue ahead.
Yeah, well, I guess the main kind of businesses we focus on is manufacturing, wholesale, and industrial services. So yeah, more industrial businesses. Typical problems they face, like a lot of them we come across pretty consistently, have got issues with ERP adoption or just actually managing to get the most out of the ERP, not just ERP, but systems in general. A lot of them are not configured correctly or just have been over time, they've been mismanaged, I guess is the way to put it, and haven't been implemented properly. So that's a key one. A lot of them lack a clear, what we would call your edge factor, but a clear, they're not digital first or digitally enabled, if that makes sense. Technology is typically working against them, not for them. Now, there are things where they've implemented an ERP or a CRM or something like that where, okay, that's pretty stock standard, I would say. That's not something that would be an amazing use of technology or being digital first or building your edge factor. But I guess there's a lot there of where a lot of them typically are the technology working against them rather than for them. And a lot of them don't know what they need to do, or most, I would say, even more importantly, they don't know what's possible. So they are so used to doing things or paper-based processes or manual-based processes, and they've built very successful businesses. Again, we've had the privilege to work with some very successful businesses and large businesses, but still they can't grasp or haven't had someone that can connect the dots between the business and the technology and go, how can we create this in a way that is scalable and repeatable, but is also built for how we do things, not necessarily that we have to conform to how the technology works. And the final one is a lot of businesses don't have intellectual property like or ownership or anything of their data, and also more importantly their systems, and a lot of them, it's really, there's just nothing there from an IP perspective.
Exactly. One thing I wanted to add to this is like I've seen businesses just struggling or fighting with on the price. Basically, they are always competing on the price. If some customer gets a cheaper price, then they will switch the business. They will just deal with other things. That's one of the biggest problem I see in the manufacturing industry, because they are always calculating cents, working on cents, calculating around cents on the raw materials and everything. But yeah, that is important. I see the important. There's the cost benefit, and that is also important. But what I see is like if they should build something, their business around something that if some salesperson or some price sense want to like change the customer, like the customer want decide on someone else. I've seen like salesperson, most of the manufacturing industry are tied up with the salesperson, right? That is one of the thing that I have also, because when salesperson leaves the company, the whole business, they take the customers as well. If they were digital first and then they were properly digitized, then the sales process, the sales channel wouldn't have entangled into the sales person, actually the individuals. That is one thing I have been looking into, is one of the issues. And then price thing is the very crucial issue. Operational issues are also there, but like these are the crucial issues that really hampers them most of the time. I feel that. Do you agree with that or what?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good point. I think there are, and especially the businesses that we work with, typically they manufacture, or if they're doing manufacturing, even wholesaling or industrial services, whatever they're doing, they're typically incredibly good at it, and they've grown that business for that very reason. So they've got quality down pat. And there is one thing, like price is definitely a certain thing, but I think another point that is a lot of businesses that we work with already have got like the quality part of it down pat. So you can get the cheapest price, but you may not get the quality, and that's not something that we're necessarily assisting them with in regards to the quality of the actual product that they're selling or they're manufacturing or the service that they're delivering at that scale. But at the same time, you need something more than just quality, because everyone claims quality as well. Everyone claims customer service. And I guess that's the whole, if you want to keep it simple, the whole part of the edge factor. We call it your digital differentiator, but it should be the number one thing salespeople sell. They shouldn't be selling that you're a manufacturer or you're a wholesaler or you're an industrial services business, or that you do great customer service or that you do great quality, whatever. That's fantastic. But we should have something that enables them to sell. This is the number one reason why, for example, X, Y, and Z. And that's where we want to get into GOS to, right? Obviously, that's what we've discussed. We're not there yet, but that's our whole aim within 2GOS is, yes, we've got all these other things, PSV thinking, the edge factor, 4DCX framework, but to make it relatable for the audience that are listening of what we're talking about this, I would sell you into GOS, and so would the rest of the team that are working on this, rather than us trying to sell anything else. The reason you would want to work with us is because of what we can give you access to within GOS and how we can run things. And that would be, again, it's the same principle applies for these other businesses. You're suddenly not competing on price. And it's not just about having your edge factor or your digital differentiator. It's not just about that, but how do you use tech to supercharge that, right? To really take that whole everything else outside of it, and it's an accelerant, right? It's fuel for the fire, is what it is that you can scale those systems, you can really give it a turbo, you can give it fuel, whatever you need, and scale it and accelerate it, that you otherwise couldn't have been able to do. And to be honest, where I think a lot of this falls down for businesses is they just do not know what is possible. And they've possibly tried digital transformation or these digital initiatives or projects previously, and they've failed. Therefore, they kind of get a bit shy from it, if that makes any sense, and pull away from it. The only other thing I wanted to mention outside of that price, that would, just before we forget, and we can discuss it a bit later as well, but typically with these types of businesses, as reiterate again, manufacturing, wholesale, industrial businesses or service businesses, is that a lot of the people on the floor, there's a disconnect between what's actually happening to what's happening on the floor. And that could be on the manufacturing floor, it could be out in the warehouse. Systems, typically there's a lot of disconnected systems. There's no consistency from order or pre-order through to actual customer satisfaction, and that is something that we want to try and overcome.
Yeah. And then I wanted to, like, while you were talking about, one thing I got into my head is like, basically this industry is the valuable thing. One of the valuable is also the with the raw material, with the waste raw material, they also try to sell it, or is that is valuable for them as well, right? Waste raw material resources. Suppose with the raw material they build a product, and then there's a waste. They try to sell it, and then all. With application software right now, what they are missing out is that, like, they missed out. For an example, they missed out a lot of codes, right? They did coding for their clients, and then they didn't got job, all that kind of thing. All those codes, if collected, it would create a report of why did it fail. If the reports are collected properly, that is kind of, right now it's just waste, right? They are not this data. There is not They are not calculating how valuable that is, because to improve the system, if they collect it properly, not only have it in emails where it takes years to refactor it and then get it to a proper data. If they could collect the only the codes, like why did it fail, in a year's time, there would be a proper trend why did it fail, right?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is that, number one, as you said, businesses aren't even collecting the data, and then if they are, it's not structured properly, or it's not in one system, and it's not even useful. It's not being used properly. Now, what I say here is, even so, some businesses are doing extremely well of collecting data for quotes. Why did we lose the deal? Whatever else, they might have a simple drop down about, but that lives in another system, right? So that might live in HubSpot or NetSuite or whatever. It lives in one system, and then the works orders for the manufacturing live over here, but then the email marketing lives here and whatever else. But there's no one system where they own all the data, without going off on a tangent. But it's not structured properly. It's not housed in one place. And most importantly, which means it's not all actionable, right?
Yeah, exactly. You might not want to see those data daily, but when you want it so bad that you want to make change, right? I, what I meant to say is like daily, you might not want to, you are stuck with all those daily chunks of your daily work life and all that kind of thing. But when you want to see, you can't see it. That's the worst part.
They've got all of this data, but it's not actionable, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean to say as well. Basically, when you want to action, you if you have to look for like research for data, you all the energy goes into the drain, like researching on the data and collecting all the data. The energy, when you lost the energy and focus, it takes times to a lot of time to get back to that rhythm.
But typically it's reactive as well, right? It's not proactive. And that's the biggest problem. Like, we're typically looking at things reactively rather than proactively. We're looking at lag measures kind of thing. Like, we're looking at things in the rear view rather than looking forward. And as we know, even with forecasting and other things, the way we get the biggest change, or way that we affect biggest things, is forecasting or looking ahead, not looking in the review, because we can't change what's already happened. And so if we can collect this data, and we know this just through our own experiments with what we're doing with IntuitUS and things that we're implementing, is that the power of data, when it's structured properly, and most importantly, systems implemented to proactively analyze that data and deliver it at scale. This is nothing new. People have been talking about data analytics and things for decades, right? Having a conversation with Jack Levi's from UPS when he was talking about what Orion and what they did with all the UPS system there and everything else. Like, the same fundamental principles still apply here. But what I feel most businesses fail right now is they're nowhere near having that level of system themselves, or that structured data. And then most importantly, it's great, one thing to have the data. What are you doing with the business logic? Let's just keep it simple. On top of that, for all your different stakeholders to actually make it useful.
Exactly. Current what happens right now is that they have all the systems, but it's not working properly. Imagine sometime someday in Perth, in a city, what happens is all the traffic lights stop working, and then manually people are like traffic police are there to handle the traffic. Imagine the chaos. That is the level of chaos currently the industry is facing. That's what I feel for, actually. People manually tweaking things here and there, and then not using the system's ability to do it. But the system should be also properly designed to do that. As the best example I could say is the traffic light. For an hour, it could create such a chaos, right? It's similar thing. If it's manually in human dependent, like manual task dependent, then it's always a chaos, and the cost of it, maintaining the manual, is huge.
Yeah, and it's not just the cost of, like, it's maintaining the mistakes, it's maintaining the resources and all of that kind of thing that come into it. And I think the biggest thing about it is, like, you take a practical example of what we're trying to do with the, as you call it, the projects application within IntuitUS, without getting into too many details, but we've got these automated sprint reviews and all of these kind of things. That, yes, there's a lot of other products out there that have done things like this here, but aren't done on proper data. Again, it comes back, so much of it comes back to data, right? And like, it doesn't need to be complicated necessarily. Like, it doesn't have to be this massive over the top thing, this massive, excessive thing. But the hardest bit, in my opinion, is creating the data structure and the relationship between all of it, and then getting that data inputted. And then when we're coming back to the businesses that we're talking about, right, manufacturers, typically the biggest mistake I see, or the issue I see, is the disconnect between the floor, the factory floor, the warehouse floor, the people on the floor, versus the office. And so many people, we've talked about this before, but have tried ERP, using NetSuite. We know for a fact, we're working with a client now that's using another system that's tried this kind of thing, where the interface is just not designed to capture that data properly. It's not intuitive. It hasn't been designed. Doesn't mean the data structure hasn't been well thought out. We haven't thought, how can we make this as easy as possible? Not just to capture data, but capture it in a very intelligent way that not only lays the groundwork and like gives them the ability to do amazing things now as a business, but what they're talking about doing in 5 years' time as a business will fundamentally shift how their business operates and mean that they can do far more in revenue that would have otherwise never been possible.
No, we have this example, real case situation where in email field phone number is placed, in phone number field name is placed. What kind of data would what help would that give us, like the give the application if it's not captured properly, right? So that is, and then one thing recently I saw somewhere. I don't know the exact news, but I would love to share. One of the guy in somewhere on Facebook or some multinational company was quit his job and then started a data manipulation company or just manually manipulating refactoring the data, and then he earned million out of it, actually just managing the data. It was like this is the level of, like, in every business this is happening. Basically, if you have to invest that kind of level of manual work, then it's like huge mistake. Again, like collecting data is one thing, but we have to make sure that right thing is placed in right way, right right fields, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. But without getting technical with it, I guess is the like so many businesses or implementations, they fail to connect the business with the technology. That's just a fact. And like it's whenever we know ourselves through experience of working with these engineers and that kind of thing. If you, as an engineer or an implementer, a technical person, whatever you want to call it, look at just, oh, okay, they've given us a checklist, so let's implement it. It's a flawed mindset, if that makes sense. And we just know this through our own experience. And then what you end up with is a Frankenstein of a glorified Excel sheet or a glorified Google sheet, whatever you want to call it. There is no intelligent, and I know for a fact, going through this myself just years and years, and you know this, working together on these projects and that kind of thing. And now just for Intuit US, I've been heavily involved with yourself and others, but in the database design and what we're trying to do. Yes, we've got to refactor things as we go along. Yes, we've got to improve things and not to just get derailed into that conversation. But I think it comes back to this data thing, right? The whole time is we've got to set a foundation for success for the next 5 to 10 years as best as we can and limit the refactoring, right? And make it as scalable as we possibly can from the beginning. And again, we've tested this model. I know for a fact I have myself, but we've tested this model of like, playing out those future scenarios and what's going to be possible once we actually achieve it. And again, just at the end of the day, it's just having data structured properly opens up a world of possibilities for us.
If the application is designed not designed to scale, then sometime someday in future, if you want to scale or like bring some change, then it's very very difficult. The change is, I call it change paralysis. You can't change, you can't move because you are so much, like your data is here there, not managed properly. It's like you will be stuck there forever. Very hard. It will be like a biggest problem. The other thing is like I would love to see, like you already discussed around the operations thing, like one department is not connected to another, the information is not flowing. I've seen people having the, they are not aware of the stock level. And sometimes sometimes what happens is also happens is that with this kind of business, not only they you overstock something because they currently work with the intuitions, right? Oh, this season is seasons of this, so it might, we might get this kind of thing. But if you have real data to, and then the one time, like there's so much of frustration. I've seen this, like customer has ordered, sales team has overquoted, like didn't, oh we have this in stock and everything, they did this thing, they did their job great, right? But coming back to the operation department, then oh there's no stock because they are not, the data is not properly connected to each other. The department are not in a sync. That is one of the biggest problems also. And our kind of industry that I've seen, everyone is always busy on the day to day, like on machines, like running the machine and everything, and but haven't been able to see this picture properly. And this is what we have learned during the discovery as well, right? They are literally not aware of the stock level.
Yeah, and that's absolutely, that's one example. I think a lot of them, like stock level, is one. Yeah, it's a good example. Like, it's just simple one people can understand. It's just like there's misalignment across the business where there's no transparency or alignment across the board. And this isn't just one client. This happens nearly with every client that we work with. Honestly, this stock thing basically happens nearly with every single client and every single business, and it's a challenge. But even further than that, what I bring it back to at a higher level is forget the stock part of it. It's repeatable systems and processes. For example, there's not one system that people can rely on that they know if they follow it, everything works. That just doesn't happen, right? And we know this through our own experience in our own business, that's where most of the problems come from. We haven't, when we've had issues, we've come it back to there's not a repeatable system, scalable system. System in this particular instance, meaning both a SOP, a standard operating procedure, as well as the actual technology that's running it, right? And we know through experience of working with people and ourselves that if we can give team members a technology system that holds their hand through whatever they need to do within their role, it eliminates 80% of the issues, from performance through to expectation of deliverables, even with clients, etc., and that kind of thing. This is where, and to bring this just practical to someone that's listening, is you might have a particular system on the floor that you need to do from a quality assurance perspective or customers request this. You might collect this information and give them to a report. Right now, at the moment, you're doing all of this in 2 spreadsheets and 2 paper-based forms, and then at the end of the month, you've got 3 admin people collating all of this, sending it to clients, etc. What you don't realize is if you properly systemized and digitized, there's 2 things here: properly systemized and digitized the business with your own, what we call your edge factor, whether that's layered on top of your ERP, it's an entire system, whatever. Let's not get into the specifics. It doesn't matter. The point of it is, if you properly systemize and digitize the business, not only can you eliminate that process, meaning where we intelligently, coming back to earlier, we capture that data throughout the process so that we can generate that report automatically. That's just one example. If we do that well enough and we captured more data in other places, not with more work, we intelligently, intuitively do this, we can now deliver live value to the customer in a way that we've never done before. We can now give insights to the factory floor in a way that we've never done before. We can give coaching to the back office staff about a specific thing. We can trigger a proactive account management notification on a specific thing. Whatever it is, our whole business model changes, right? And again, this is what we discussed, I think it was a couple of episodes ago, but a lot of this comes back to the scalable systems and processes. And I don't want to bang on about it because the stock level is an example, but I want to give everyone an example. Again, just an overall example. This comes back to how do we give every stakeholder, whether it's customers, back office staff, whether it's your factory floor, warehousing, customers, different subset of customers, every stakeholder, an intuitive system that just does their role for them, basically. Right. And if you do that, you'll be forced to capture the data properly. You'll be forced to make the system intuitive. But most people don't know how to do that. They can't connect the business and the technology part of it. Honestly, that's where it falls down. They cannot connect those two.
Exactly. And then one thing I've used the term discovery. I just wanted to clear out with the audience that discovery is one of the phase that we do with the clients. Basically, we literally go to their businesses and almost try to spend a week with them in the business, in the field itself, and then understand each and everything, every part of the, basically collect all the issues and problems. And then with the PST thinking, we try to calculate the value of the problems actually, basically. And then also this is not only ends there, but we also communicate these problems with our team members so that whoever is doing the coding or whatever problem solving, they know what value of problem solving, they relate to the problem properly. This is how we do the discovery phase, so that to the ground level problem is communicated properly and the value is communicated properly, everything is communicated properly. This is what we envision with every discovery what we do.
Just to add to that, I think it's super important to add in here that when we go through these things, specifically the PSV thinking, so many of the time, I would say 80% of the time or more, we find things that the business they may have already known they were there to a degree, but have never looked at in a way that we find and help them understand and look at things, right? And again, this is about saying very simply, how do we get and solve the problems and focus on the problems that solve or increase profitability the most, enable scale the most, and build the most enterprise value. And I've had so many scenarios where we've worked on this for clients and they've gone like, we had no idea it was costing us that much. And not only that, of like direct cost, it's like how much it was costing us in opportunity cost as well. And I think that's just the thing that gets missed. But coming back to these problems, there's pretty standard that we can list. Like there's a disconnect between systems, there's a disconnect across different stakeholders, that kind of thing. But there's just real-time lack of transparency, lack of alignment, lack of data, honestly, and lack of repeatable, scalable, digitized systems, which means that so much stuff comes back to people's heads and comes back to relying on a human to actually execute it. And if either of those things fail, then what we end up with is angry customers, misaligned processes, etc., which we know it.
Basically, like what we are thinking of is like we are not only trying to solve your operation problem, not only trying to solve your customer experience problem, but also with while we are talking with regarding ace factor, we are also trying to create your brand value, increase your brand value as well. With intuitives, it's the same thing. That's what we are trying to do. We're trying to create our own brand value. We are trying to increase the customer experience, improve the customer experience, improve the employee experience that we currently have. That's what we want to build it for you as well, for everyone as well, because this is why we want to share this type of content in our disruptors. Actually, this is what we want to do with how we want to disrupt the market.
We're all learning here, right? As that's the point. Like we're trying to share in real time to prevent people making the same mistakes that we've made and to help them get 10 years of experience in a very short period of time rather than having to, just try and go through that themselves. And I guess the biggest thing, I literally had a conversation with someone recently as well about this specifically, potential client. And they were just talking about exactly the things that we're talking about. They've tried to do a lot of things. This is not the first time, it happens very often, but they've tried to do things internally. They've tried to do things as best they could. They did did the best they could themselves, but they've tried to do all of this internally. They try to build their edge factor. They've got a really good idea, but they've failed on the execution. They've failed to take, again, it comes back to that business and technology. You might have a fundamentally good business idea or idea that can help change your business, but they can't then translate it to the technology side. And even when they think they do, they're not doing the right thing, if that makes sense. As we know this, and the problem with this, it's even different to building and construction. And a lot of our listeners that are in these industries that we're talking about will be familiar with construction and manufacturing things. The difference with that, you think about it like manufacturing, right? So forget building, think manufacturing. You're building a widget or a product, you can see it, right? So when I weld something or, I fix it together or whatever I do, I can physically see it. I can actually look at it. And anyone that may not even be involved in it can pick something up, like this pen, for example, something, and say, oh yeah, I can't see everything about it, but at least I have some idea. I can look at it visually and go, it's kind of okay. People cannot do that with technology or systems. They have no reference point, whether something's good, something's bad. It is much harder than people realize. And I say this time and time again, it takes a lot more investment and a lot more time than people allow for to build your own technology, e.g. your edge factor, incredibly well. At the same time, people massively underestimate the power that it has, that it can, in a way it can transform their business. And we've worked with businesses that have done this, right? We know businesses that have done this. And there's no way they could do what they do today without those systems in place.
Exactly. One thing I was thinking of is like always this while we are building ace factor, if ace factor like saves 5 minutes of someone's day for a year, daily, then it saves a lot of money. This is what I see, what we actually are trying to build. And saving time is saving money. While the industry, manufacturing is always fighting against the price, if saving money makes sense, then building a factory is makes sense more.
Yeah. What I would position this as well, personally, the way I'd position this, and again, this is a conversation we've had from a client recently about an edge fax that we built from them, was, and there's no guarantee in this, and there's obviously other parts to it, but they were going for a tender or a contract opportunity that would double the sales in their business because of what they'd built. Okay, so it was worth the whole contract was worth double their sales, right? So it was a massive contract, and it would double the sales of their business if they were to win it because of the technology that they'd built, and we'd work with them to build. Now, it doesn't mean that it's perfect, that you don't need to fix things and don't. That's part and parcel. It's like saying that we never need to fix our products or refine our products or improve our products. It's just a silly way to look at it. Of course, you've got it. You've constantly got to invest in it. You've constantly got to improve. But what I'm saying with that, I totally get the point, and I agree with saving time is massive, a massive cost. But I argue and push for what it allows you to do from an opportunity perspective is far bigger than what it can ever save you. And I'll position in this fact. For example, could you take that same thing that a client has experienced and say, okay, the only reason we've been able to win this contract or this business is because of our edge factor and what we built here, right? And one day we'll be saying that about Intuit, right? And that's the difference between, oh yeah, it saved us 5,000 hours a year, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, because that is brilliant. A lot of big cost savings, brilliant for the business, should still happen. But the better thing is to say we landed that monstrous contract because we could offer something no one else could. There's a big difference in mindset. And again, I even encourage people when we work with them, yes, we absolutely need to be looking at where we can increase profitability and save costs, 100%. But if that's your only mindset, you're looking at this the complete wrong way, because what you'll miss out on is the opportunities. If you think about it in a different perspective of like, okay, what could we possibly do, right? If we had this, this, and this, that would mean that we were hands down the leader in the industry. Okay, well, how do we do that? Not just, how do we take this process and cut 1,000 hours a month out of it, right? It's a different kind of mindset. But then at the same time, when you start talking the scale of the clients that we get to work with and the privilege that we've had working with them, making a small improvement in a process can sometimes be worth a lot of money.
Exactly. Look, one of the experiences I've seen is like the simple quoting tool. In email and every process is like it takes weeks and weeks. A simple quoting tool, if a customer can jump into their application and then okay, I this is the cost. They can see it. They can make the decision instantly. The instant thing creates a lot of business because they in weeks or 2 weeks time they always switch their mind. Oh, this is not better. They already researched on everything else and then they change their mind. If they can click the button buy now, that is very like that is if the instant decision of with the guts, right?
Yeah, well, very powerful though as well. Like it's the same. It's just, but people want, when someone wants a solution, they want it now, and we know this for ourselves. And it's very difficult for us because we've got very complicated projects and but it's exactly what we intend on doing with Intuit. How do we take some of these things that take us 3 to 4 weeks sometimes to put together because the amount of effort that has to go into it, right? How do we take that down to 3 to 4 days, right? And not deliver anything worse, but deliver something better. Again, it's not like it's going to be quicker and worse, but it's got to be quicker and better. So yes, it's not just easy to do that. It's hard to do that, but it is possible. And we know through the POCs that we've done and everything else that we are heading towards that direction. But this is the same with any other business. It's different to us, but it's the same principle applies. The same thing applies. Of that's how you should be looking at things. And same thing. Imagine if we could take those ones that are taking us 3 to 4 weeks now, do it in 3 to 4 days. Oh, now we can do 4 times the opportunities. Oh, suddenly, wow, that system's just opened up 4 times the growth for us that we otherwise would have been able to do, right? With the same power, same thing, right?
Yeah. Okay, we discussed a lot. It was a very, very mindful discussion, and I love the conversation today. Thanks, Julian, again for this week's Disruptors podcast. I've touched a lot of part of the businesses we deal with. I hope you enjoyed, and hope everyone, whoever is listening, enjoys as well. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. It was a good chat. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Disruptors. If you are serious about unlocking your ace factor, the thing that sets your business apart and helps it grow sustainably, don't forget to follow, share, and leave a quick review. We will be back next week with more real world insights and no flop conversations on how to rethink your systems, modernize operations, and build value that lasts. Until then, stay sharp, stay focused, and keep disrupting.